Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Wake Up Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday is the day that we wake up to new realities in our lives. And those realities are, what does it mean to be loved by God? What does that mean for us in our daily lives and how we go about living in hope and trust in our God who loves us so much that, as we saw last week, he gave his only begotten Son. Okay, so we wake up to those realities with a nice cup of coffee. Well, really, that's not how we wake up. We wake up to the reality as the Apostle Paul tells us in our epistle lesson for this coming Sunday. We're looking at Romans, the 5th chapter, the first 11 verses. Now, I've mentioned this before. Paul is really tough to understand. His language is elegant. Romans is the masterpiece of all his letters, but it's really deep theologically. And he gets into ways of arguing different things that the people back in his day would understand perfectly because, hey, that's the way we argue or discuss or debate items out in the open, out in the public square. But it's not the way we do it now. So what's best to do is have a couple different translations of his work in front of you. Right now, I have the Revised Standard Version in one hand, and then I have the Message in the other. And as I read them side by side, I go, okay, that's where you're going, Paul. Just in a nutshell, up to this point in chapter 5, Paul has been talking about God's grace in our lives. And it's not the works that we do, anything that we do that gets God to love us, so to speak, and to have mercy on us. No, God just plain does it. It's all him. When we respond to that love and grace, then you see the works part enter into the picture, meaning the results of being transformed into his love. So when we're getting into chapter 5, it's a little bit of a turning point because now Paul starts talking about what life is like once we have been touched by God's love and grace. And there's a couple things in here that I'd just like to point out that may be a little difficult to read. So again, it's chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. That is our text for this coming Sunday. But just to look here, it talks about, therefore, since we are justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, this is what the Message says. By entering through faith into what God has always wanted us to do, set us right with him, make us fit for him, we have it all together with God because of our Master, Jesus. So, yeah, that's kind of what Paul is telling us. So I like the way the Message puts it. But then, reading from the Revised Standard Version again, we have this. Through whom we have attained access to this grace in which we stand, and we boast in our hope and sharing the glory of God. Now, here's how the Message puts it. And that's not all. We throw open our doors to God and discover at the same moment that he's already thrown open the doors to us. See? God doing it on our behalf. We find ourselves standing where we always hoped we might stand, out in the wide open spaces of God's grace and glory, standing tall and shouting out our praise. Man, I love it. I mean, you're on a real high, so to speak, a spiritual high when you read those first 5 verses of the 5th chapter of Romans. But now there's a little realism that Paul throws into it. Yeah, we enter into this perfect peace of God, but you know what? We still live in this world that often rebels against that peace. He goes, there's more to come. We continue to shout our praise, even when we're hemmed in with troubles. And the Revised Standard Version puts it, and not only that, but we also boast in our sufferings, knowing that what? That those sufferings produce endurance? Yeah, in the way the Message puts it, because we know how troubles can develop passionate patience in us. and how that patience in turn forges the tempered steel of virtue, keeping us alert for whatever God will do next. So, in other words, what Paul is saying is this gift of God's grace just keeps giving and giving and giving. And as long as we stand firm in it, wow, we can see our way through no matter how tough times get. I like, especially when we get to verse 6, Christ arrives right on time to make all this happen, meaning all the troubles that we go through, he's there to take us through it and to give us the power and the strength to persevere in his love, his grace, and giving us that peace. So this is a really good chapter to read. And like I said, it's tough. So maybe if you get something like the Living Bible, the Message. I remember growing up with Good News for Modern Man. Sometimes those can help us understand a little more the nuances that Paul is talking about and the way he's talking about it, and put it more into our kind of English. So, well, you know what? I've already had 2 cups of coffee, so maybe I should, you know, it, yeah, I just had to go back for a little bit more there. But instead of relying on my cup of coffee to wake me up, maybe I should let a little bit more of God's love and grace toward me be that stimulus for my life out in the world today. Maybe for you as well. God's blessings be with you.